just let them have that moment because he knew what it meant to them. And even though, I saw him in different stages and in different moods based on the time of day and other factors, he was always the same way, always willing to just allow people to have that connection and that touch with him. And so it was a tremendous experience. I hope I remember the rest of my life.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable that when Muhammad Ali first began to gain his notoriety, people didn't like him that much.
No, he was a villain.
They called him the Louisville Lip. They said he talked too much. They said he wasn't humble. They didn't like the fact that, he was a part of the Black Muslim movement. But now, the amount of love that he gets is unbelievable. Just being in Singapore, nowhere near the United States, and people know who he is, just want to go up and touch him. It's unbelievable, man. And like you said earlier, there has not been a sports figure, maybe ever, to be as big as Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali was definitely a villain in his younger years in boxing. Just for, a lot of people don't like trash talking, man. He was pretty much the father of trash talk for professional athletes, man. He bragged, he boasted, and he backed it up, though, in the ring. And, for as far as his social, and the community, the things that he did inside the community, man. He was very outspoken about his community, about, how America treated, the African American people. And, especially when he switched religions, when he switched to the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Islam was on the FBI's top list along with the Black Panthers, man. So, he was definitely vilified in his younger years. And, when they stripped him of his title, when he refused to, go to the Vietnam War, that was the height of the hatred for Muhammad Ali. But, he went on to become a beloved figure in society and in sports, man. You talk about the Thriller in Manila. You talk about the Rumble in the Jungle, man. These are all-time fights, man. And, how can you deny his greatness? So, Erica Nelson, she is, she has memories to last a lifetime. She has pictures, that she can look on and like, hey, I met, someone who actually made a difference in the world, not just in the world of sports.
Gonna take another quick break. We'll be right back. And on the other side, we'll get that second part of the interview with Erica Nelson, Director of Life Skills and Community Outreach at the University of South Carolina, right here on the All Things Sport podcast with Daimeon Banks and Pierre Banks. Pierre Banks here, thanking you all for listening to the All Things Sport podcast. Please subscribe for much more of the show. Also, join myself and Rudy Mondragon for In My Humble, The Split Decision, where we discuss all things boxing and what is just our humble opinion on the In My Humble YouTube channel.
What you ain't heard?
Somebody done told you wrong, punk.
It's the All Things Sport podcast with Daimeon Banks and Pierre Banks.
Latifah, party's right here.
On Spreaker Radio.
And we are back with the All Things Sport podcast. I'm Pierre Banks. He's Daimeon Banks. Before the break, we were speaking with Erica Nelson, Director of Life Skills and Community Outreach at the University of South Carolina. She was kind enough to call in for a few minutes on her interaction with the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. Very interesting things in the first part of the interview. Second part of the interview, even better. So let's take you to it right now. Erica Nelson, former sports director for NYC 2012, a committee put together to present their case to the International Olympic Committee to bring the 2012 games to New York City. Of course, those games ended up being held in London, but it wasn't for lack of effort. And one of those efforts was actually bringing Olympic great, sports great, boxing great, humanitarian, philanthropist, the list goes on and on. The greatest, Muhammad Ali.
As you say that, Pierre, I can't help but smiling just because I got to see him in so many different moods. I mean, sometimes we would just be sitting in his hotel room. Lonnie might be in the room taking a nap, or she had gone downstairs for a massage or whatever the case may be. She just asked me to just stay with him, and we wouldn't even really need to be talking, just being in the same room with him. I'd look up, he'd look at me, maybe give me a half smile. He liked to draw. So he would be in there, he'd be drawing on a piece of paper. We were in a restaurant once and he was drawing on one of those cloth napkins that you have in a restaurant. Who's going to tell Muhammad Ali that he can't draw on a cloth napkin? And so he liked to draw. We didn't have hardly any verbal communication. But Lonnie, again, his wife knew all of his moods and habits, and she could tell me how he was feeling or what he might be thinking. He had very expressive eyes, and so, the eyes really are a window to the soul. And so we had a nonverbal communication, and I could tell that he liked me, he was comfortable with me, and really that's what it was all about, is that, he had a consistent person to know that I was going to be there, and for Lonnie, I could answer any questions and make sure that she had all the information needed for all the appearances. But, I saw him he could be flirty. He liked the young girls. I was one of those people he took that out on, but anyone who was young and cute, he would be making little faces and trying to just, be silly in that way. I could see him be stoic depending on the time of day and if he had his medication, if he was tired. Another person we had as part of our delegation, this is actually pretty timely as well, was Hillary Rodham Clinton. And we brought her to Singapore as well, and it was myself, Howard, his best friend, who also is his photographer and really has been capturing all of the moments for, I want to say, decades of his life. And we were sitting at a restaurant, and here comes Miss Clinton, and he stood up, and they had obviously met many times, and he just stood up and gave her a very warm hug. So obviously there was a comfort level there as well. And so, I really did. I got to see him in quiet moments. I got to see him where, he knew to be very to have that presence that everyone expected, the International Committee presentation being one of those. Again, we didn't have him say anything. He wasn't speaking much at all at that time, but just having him there we thought was very powerful. And so, I did. I got to see that kind, patient side. I got to see him in quiet moments where he just liked to draw and just, wanted just to have a little bit of peace and quiet and to just do what he enjoyed doing. I saw him be silly. I told a story to you earlier about him. The only words I heard him say was in one instance where Howard was talking a little bit of mess to him, and I think Howard knew how to get under his skin. And Howard was talking about how he would, he could kick his butt and you're nothing and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, he was drawing on the cloth napkin, as he had a couple times, and he just looked up at Howard and just said, "He ain't crazy." Meaning Howard ain't crazy. He knows what he would be dealing with. So that was funny. And those are the only words I heard him speak. But again, that experience is really powerful for me. Just the whole 3 days that I had with him. And, one lasting experience really was, the moment that we knew that we had not been selected to host the game. And a minute or two after that, Muhammad's driver called me to ask what time he needed to pick him up so we could go back to the ballroom where they were making the final announcement. And we, of course, expected to be there as one of two finalists to be selected to host the games, and had to tell him at that point that we had not made the cut. And that's the last real memory I had there, aside from putting Lonnie and Mr. Ali in their car and sending them off the next morning to the airport, and off they went.
Just amazing just to sit and listen to those stories and hear certain things about the champ. Now, Erica, being an athlete yourself, played basketball in college out in California and even worked in the NBA office for a while in the player development level there. What doors did Muhammad Ali open for you? What did he mean to you as a voice for not only Black America, not only young America, but all of us as Americans?
I think the greatest impact he made was the fact that he knew that his impact was greater than just being a boxer. I think he showed the power that a person can have with the platform of using their celebrity. And I think he stood for something. And I think that, I wasn't alive to watch him box, but, I knew the history of what he stood for. And for me, that was as much standing up for what was right and what he believed in as much as it was him being a successful boxer and him being, a very confident boxer, to say the least. So for me, it was just the person and everything that he stood for, and just being all about people and being about peace. And those are two things that really stand out to me. We didn't need to share many, we didn't need to speak verbally for me to feel connected to him. And Lonnie and of course, Muhammad had to be comfortable with this. Obviously, he couldn't speak, but, with Lonnie telling him what this was a really big deal for us. And so he did this for his country. And it was a lot. Every move that we made, required a lot of effort and energy on his part. And so we could only schedule 2 appearances at a time because he needed to get back to the hotel to rest. It was very exhausting for him. So, this was something that meant a lot to me personally, just to be put in this role and to be entrusted in that role. But it also meant a lot to my dad, someone who really can appreciate and who knew, the magnitude of Muhammad Ali and everything that he'd done. And so, but for me, that just the lasting memories are just the fact that I was able to have the experience of seeing him in so many different facets. And, it's unfortunate that some people would see him and he might be in a stoic mood or tired or, not really able to really communicate or be in an energized state where they could feel like they connected to him. But I had that opportunity over the course of those 3 days.
You keep talking about being comfortable around each other. You look mighty comfortable in one picture I have here of you and the greatest when it looks like he's stealing a kiss from you. What's that all about?
Well, I was single at the time. No, I'm kidding. I said that he could be flirty and whatnot, and yeah, he was up in age, but we're just all in fun, and I don't know what day that was on. I'm sure it wasn't on day one, but something about me. We just we connected, and he, without really being able to speak, he seemed to obviously want to do that, and then I went with it. So yeah, it was fun. Those pictures really allow me to continue to tell the story at a time when I may even remember some of the details. So from us, one of those pictures there I sent you, Pierre, was us in the hotel there, the International Olympic Committee. I mentioned that was one of the places that we just happened to be sitting when some of those IOC members were walking by, and our staff would bring them over to meet him and the like. So everything that I've shared with you, I'm really happy to have those pictures that really help accentuate the experience.
We're speaking with Erica Nelson, Director of Life Skills and Community Outreach at the University of South Carolina. Erica, we so much appreciate you coming onto the show to talk about the greatest, Muhammad Ali. But before we go, let me brag on you a little bit. Erica oversees, of course, the Life Skills and Community Outreach at the University of South Carolina and the University of South Carolina student athletes. Now and correct me if I'm wrong here, Erica, but for 3 years straight now have led the Southeastern Conference in community outreach hours, and it's not by a little bit, right?
You're right. The last 2 years by over 4,000 hours. So it's the students, but yes.
Absolutely. And you do a wonderful job with those student athletes there. It means the world to the community. They love the Gamecocks down here in Columbia, South Carolina. And Erica, you're a huge part of that. And you do some other things in addition to community outreach. We're preparing the student athletes for life after, collegiate sports, life after, getting that college education. And it cannot be overstated the job you are doing now, the job you've done in the past with player development and the NBA office, your job with NYC 2012. And I am just so impressed by your body of work and your career. If I've never told you that, I apologize, but I'm so impressed with you, have always been. And thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Pierre. I appreciate all those complimentary things you just said, and I think my career, my professional career, has been about helping people, And that really brings me joy. And from an NBA perspective, it was about getting the guys ready for life after retirement, and it comes a lot quicker than they want it to. And same can be said of our student athletes here. Those 4 years go really fast, and so it's my job, it's my pleasure, it's my honor to be there to support them and to just whether you're an Olympian, a professional athlete, or a collegiate athlete, they